So I'm going to show you how to prepare and sow a tray of seeds for different types of seed. First things first, we've got some compost that has been wet. It's not sodden, but you can see it's not as dry as it would be just coming straight out of the bag. That's ideal because when we water, we'll water from underneath with seeds to prevent wash off, and consequently having the compost already wet will help the covalent bonding. It'll help the water lift through the soil. First thing to do then is to have a clean tray and fill it with compost. Fill it with compost. Now I like to, and the RHS will enjoy this, if when you strike your compost off, you do it towards the centre so that all your waste compost ends up in the same place and you don't get it scattered all over your bench. Then we'll be looking for things like that. That is, you get points for efficiency on that. Okay, with a press then, I will then press the compost down about, whoops daisy, about 3/4 of a centimetre, 7 mil, something like that. That gives me a nice flat surface now on which to sow my seeds. Okay, these are half seed trays. What I might do now is just take a glove off because I find it easier to handle seeds without a glove. And I'll show you with lettuce. Just because lettuce is a small seed and it's interesting to know how to sow sort of small seeds as well as medium and large seeds. So they are a very small seed. I don't know if you can see how small they are.
Yep.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to approximately, it's not going to be easy, I'm going to approximately get about 50 seeds in the palm of my hand. Put the rest back in there. Try not to get them contaminated into the compost. Again, you'll lose points for doing that. And then using the crook of my hand, you've got like a natural crease there. I'm just going to tap my hand and get the seeds to tumble evenly anywhere where you've not got any. Put a few extra ones, lovely, and make sure you get them all actually in the seed tray. Now with lettuce, because they are a very small seed, they don't actually need covering. They've actually got an anti-germination thing that will only allow them to germinate if they're in sunlight, and that's like a safety net for all small seeds because they don't have the power to push a long way up if planted too deeply. They will actually only trigger germination if they're laying on top, so they do need sunlight. On top, I'll be putting these in an irrigation bath and allowing the water to soak up through. So effectively, that is that for a small seed. On a medium-sized seed, however, I'm going to put my gloves back on again. It's always best to wear gloves when handling compost. I'm going to fill the tray up in the same manner. That's it, get it all around the sides and the edges, lovely. And then I'm going to again strike off back towards the compost so I'm not scattering it all over my desk or over my bench. Right. And press it down again. Oops, baby, go on. Again, between 1/2 centimetre and 3/4 centimetre. I'm going to get out some medium-sized seeds now. We'll go for beetroot. Again, these I'm going to get approximately the same quantity. We've got the probably about 30 seeds. And I'm going to pretty much just place these evenly over the surface of the compost tray. one there, it's too close together. Look, there we go. Just giving them a little bit of space to grow each. These, don't forget, will be pricked out. Once they start to grow, they'll be pricked out and either into larger trays or cellular systems like that, and then eventually planted out. We don't want to sow too densely. If we sow too densely, there's too much competition and you get etiolation where they actually grow too quickly, and you could also get phytophthora, which is like a rot that can occur at the base of the plant. With these ones, because they're medium size, they do need covering. So what we then do is, I'll just put my gloves back on again. We get a riddle. And we put the compost in the riddle. And I'm just going to, I'm a tambourine man. Just going to lightly shake compost over the top. Just to ensure the seeds are covered, and then just finally just a tiny little press again, not a large press this time, just a tiny press, just to give us a watering rim. And that is medium seeds. These can be watered from the top. So if you are presented in your test with some larger seeds, you might be given something like peas or beans, something like that. If you're given those and a selection of trays, it would be more sensible to use one of the cellular packs than it would be to use a seed tray. So in your assessment, the selection of the correct tray is probably something that you need to consider. When doing these, again, we fill the tray up in a similar fashion. Going to let the little explorers go before I crack on. We've got a nursery next door to college, and the little tykes come running past twice a day. Okay, so we overfill the tray, and then we strike it off back towards the compost to minimise the mess on the bench. So you've got like a situation like that. Then you can use another tray, but ours have got dimples in the bottom, so it's not ideal. You could just press another tray on top there and squash it down a tiny bit, just to firm the compost. But I use just my striking off board, and just a couple of times in each cell, just to knock it down 4 or 5 mil below the fill line. Just to consolidate. We're not compacting, we're consolidating, just to enable and ensure a bit of water retention in the cells. Okay, for large seeds, you'd probably use a dibber. And I would dib, if you look at the seeds, the general rule of thumb is for a hole to be 3 times the depth of the seed. So once the seed's in place, it's got twice its height on top of it. So these 6 or 7 mil seeds need a planting hole of 21 mil, if you like. So I'm just going to make a little 2 centimetre dib in the middle of each cell. And then I'm going to place a seed in and just push it in so it sits to the bottom. Each cell, get a few more. And then just put a bit of compost on top of each one. Just fill the holes in, as though you're planting a shrub outside really. Just fill the compost up. If you've got very lumpy compost, you might want to use sieved compost for that, so that when the seedling pushes through, it's not having to do any heavy weight lifting. But and that again can be watered from the top because it's a large seed. I'm just going to tell you the last step of seed sowing, and that is before you put these seeds away in the greenhouse, that you label them. When we're labelling, we start writing from the top and work downwards, so that when the label is plunged, we can begin to read it. So I would write on here, I'm going to write B and the date, and I put my name on the back as well. Always best to do that in a shared greenhouse. Don't miss out that step. Always label your seedlings. You won't know what you've got when they emerge, because they will all emerge looking like cress. That's the nature of dicotyledons.